All right, I want to weigh in about recapping radios. Okay, any transistor radio that's 50 years old, some of the capacitors are going to be bad. So you're going to have to recap. You're going to have to know how to recap. And I use a cap checker. After I take the cap out, I use one of these. And I also have this unit. Okay? Now, when you take old capacitors out and you measure them, they're going to be higher than normal, way higher, but usually almost 50% higher, let's just say, okay? And that's because they've dried out. The plates have shrunk down, and when you check the capacitance with the meter gets fooled, and it tells you have a lot of capacitance, and you really don't. The capacitor's bad, all right? Now, that's understanding that the cap's old, they dry out, they increase in value, but it's not really true. So you have to change them, and you take one out at a time. Now I'm going to tell you something the others don't tell you. All right, now capacitors have no real convention. So you pull out a convention means the way they're set up. Okay, now this one has a stripe down the side. I don't know if you can see it. And it has a minus in it. But there's a capacitor in here that I just put in, the yellow one, and it's got a stripe down the side with a tiny little positive in the stripe, and the stripe is actually an arrow. And if you don't watch that, you can put capacitors in backwards. Now there are also capacitors that have a dot, a red dot. That's the positive lead, but in these radios are positive ground. The older ones, later on, they become negative ground. And you have to understand that. But when you take the old capacitor out, you make a quick diagram, take a piece of paper, and you just do the drawing the way the capacitors sit and which way the minus lead is. Or you could do the positive lead. I tend to do the minus lead because the caps I took out have little tiny minuses on the top. And these things are notorious for drying out. But this 5 microfarad reads 200 microfarad, okay? Obviously it can't be, all right? But they go bad. And, you have arguments, and they don't all go bad. You could have a radio from the 50s, and some of the capacitors are still workable, okay? They didn't dry out. They were a different type of capacitor. These are electrolytics, and they dried out, this type. And this brand was actually bad. Probably in the 70s, the radio started failing. All right, now, I also want to tell you, when you work on a transistor radio, a small one, remove the speaker wires from the speaker. Don't have the speaker dangling from the circuit board. Now, I have a vise I put the radio in when I'm removing the capacitor. It makes it very nice to have the radio stable. And I desolder with this desoldering bulb. All right, and then I use an X-Acto knife. This is a Harbor Freight knife. It's padded. It's very nice to work with. I use the very tip to get under the lead of the capacitor, and then because I have the radio in the vise, I can get this underneath and heat it up a little and lift the lead. The leads are steel, so they're a little bit tougher for such a small item to have such a stiff little lead on it. But anyway, that's how I do it. Okay, but I just wanted to warn you about not all capacitors, the stripe down the side is the negative. All right, so you want to make sure you make a diagram which way the capacitor goes in the board, whether you go positive lead or negative lead. Now you know which way the capacitor should go in, and now the capacitor in your hand, you're absolutely certain you have it the right way. Okay, that's why a lot of people that recap radios, when they turn it on, they don't work because they put the capacitor in backwards. All right, they got confused or whatever, or they thought they were going to remember which way they went in after they took them out. You take one out at a time. And if the radio works a little bit, each time you change the capacitor, you might want quick leads to the speaker. But anyway, you might want to check the radio each time you change the capacitor. There's only 4 in a lot of radios. Okay, so it's no real tough thing to do, but you can screw up very easily. And then a solder bridge from the capacitor to another component under the radio. You might not see it. You might not know what you're looking for. That radio is now garbage. All right. And it's very tough to work on these radios. They're very tiny. They made them small. Now, I think I covered all that. I had I got the capacitors in for the IF can. They went to Lancaster, California, and then they made it back to Lancaster, PA. So someone shipped it the wrong way. Got them. Took over a week. The radio, this Westinghouse, okay, 3 days. It's amazing. When you hit it just right, the guy on eBay decides to take it right to the post office instead of giving you a. He says it's been shipped, but all he's sending you is the tracking number. And then 3 days later, he makes it to the post office. Then the post office gets such a large amount from the guy of packages. They scan a traveler or a nomenclature or a piece of paper from him that says all the units he wants shipped. And then they call it pending until someone takes each one of those units and scans it into their system. All right, so you can have 3 days before the guy takes it to the post office, 2 days before the post office scans it to make it no longer pending, and then it starts getting shipped to you. So, and then they send it to the wrong Lancaster. We call it Lancaster out here. It's Lancaster in California. One's a Dutch pronunciation and one's an English pronunciation. Now I want to tell you, I started seeing Shango recap, and I haven't done it in a couple years. So I always wanted one of these. Look at the size of this radio, okay? Now, there was one of these in my dad's workshop, and I had a holiday radio. I still have it. It's been recapped twice. It was my radio. I got it like in 1958. I still got it. It still works. And I said, oh, that's a nice radio. Where'd you get that? It's your sister's. And I didn't even know they bought it for her, okay? And she whined and guessed, and they bought it. They didn't tell her they were buying it. They didn't tell me they were buying it. And within 2 days, she dropped it. And my father went in and he fixed the broken circuit board. And then it either fell in the toilet bowl or the tub. And my parents weren't talking about it because they were so upset. Now, I think this might have been a retail store. It might have been $12, maybe. Okay. But my father didn't want to throw it out. And eventually he did. But I kept seeing this and I'm saying, that was a cute little radio. Because you could really put that in your pocket and compared to my holiday radio. There was no going to school with it. You couldn't keep it in your pocket. You had to put it somewhere else, and then it could get stolen or whatever. But yeah, that's my one story about the radio. It's got like a psychological thing to it. They always bought my sister the more expensive bicycle, and they would tell me your sister gets better grades than you. And what did I know? Okay, a parent's not supposed to do that, by the way. I know what they did to me. Well, anyway, I want to tell you this other story about capacitors, putting them in the wrong way. When I worked at TRW, the bosses would call me over in the office. They said, I want you to go over there. I want you to straighten him out. And that's what they do. And the other workers didn't like me. I'm the kid that, I became the kid that at the end of the school day raises his hand and tells the teacher forgot to give us homework. That's how I was hated in electronics. And the boss would say to me, go over there and straighten him out. So I go over, and this guy's got in his beard, he's got pieces of capacitors, and they're big electrolytics on the circuit board. And they've been exploding. I've been hearing it from the other across the room, but I don't go over there because it starts a fight. They don't want to see me over there telling them they're doing something wrong. I only go over there if the boss tells me, because then as I go over there and I start helping them, the boss is over my shoulder a few feet, and then they listen to what I'm saying. And I walked over there, and this guy, he's got the pieces of the capacitors, the paper and that, up in his beard. And I look at the radio, at the circuit board, the power supply, and I said, the capacitors are in backwards. No, those are okay, those capacitors. I says, I was told I can use those. I said, yeah, you can use those, but you got them in the wrong way. No, I said, look, I said, you see that big arrow down the side? He says, yeah, it's the minus. I said, no, 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 not on these. You use a different brand of capacitors. Look real close at the stripe. It's got a positive in there. Well, why would they do that? I said, look, I'm over here to fix the problem. Okay? I'm telling you, you got all those capacitors in backwards. That's all. That's why they're exploding. Okay? So he's really upset. Now, that guy was unconscious twice in his lifetime. Once with a car accident, once with a motorcycle accident. He was slow mentally and crazy mentally from being unconscious for a week or whatever it was each time. Or he was just like that before he got in the accidents. We attribute it to the accidents, okay? Now, we called him BOD, B-O-D, Burnt Out Dave, because he was something to see. But anyway, he does a whole new power supply. Right? He takes all the capacitors out and he puts them in the other way. A new set, and it all works. And I leave, you know. Then a month or so goes by, and I'm in a meeting, and one boss, I didn't like him. He's telling us we can't have these circuit boards remade. And I'm like, what is wrong? You know, these are power supplies. They've always worked. And he shows me the circuit boards are burnt. And he don't know why they burned. They're burning out. I said, well, let me go over and look. Well, what the guy did, what Burnt Out Dave did was, he changed the brand of capacitor, but these are stud-mounted capacitors. They have threaded like 1/4 bolts with lock washers, and he would mount them to the board, and he would turn the bolts on the capacitors until they were tight. He didn't turn them until they were tight enough on the board because the bolts were now too long because he was using a different brand of capacitor. Okay, so they'd sit there and arc, and it would eat away the tray. So I come up with having a guy down in the machine shop. He cut out, overlay copper, thin copper, as a circuit board. And we lay that down on the other circuit board and solder it on. And I was supposed to be written up and got an award for that, but I didn't. But it just worked so fast, we got caught up. We took the bolts that were too long and ground them down, fixed the whole problem. That guy got kind of upset. He left, went with another company, and then he called back up. And he wanted his job back, and they wouldn't rehire him. But it's funny stuff you go through. But the whole idea of this video is you got to understand which way the capacitor was in the radio and the one in your hand, that you actually know what the plus and minus on the capacitor. I know some of you are like, I know that. Yeah, you get the capacitors, they've got a red dot. And something like this. Okay, this is a tantalum. And let me look at how this one is done. Let me look. These are so many circuit boards that were fixed by other people had these in backwards. Now let me tell you what the convention is on this one. Okay, at the top of the body, up here is a positive. All right, let's see if we got this in frame. So that lead right here is positive. Okay, pretty cool, huh? A lot of people would never notice that. Little tiny positive up there. Put this in backwards. And these babies explode. They're tantalums. Now, we get some real nut. And the people are like, how do you... I worked on stuff. I'm the guy that had to go over and straighten something out when everybody else gave up. And then they'd hate me for it, too. Okay. I think these are 47. I can almost remember the value. Yeah. This is a 40. I look at it by color. 40. Yellow is 4. 7 is 7. And then blue down the bottom. But here's the convention. See that yellow stripe down the side? Okay, so when you pick this capacitor up, it's a tantalum. Yellow, violet, blue. 47 microfarads. And I might be wrong. It could be 4.7. But in my mind, it's telling me this is a 47. But if you put this in backwards, it's across the power supply. It explodes. It's pretty funny stuff. But I just wanted to give you some of my insight, because when I watch some other people's videos, I can see, why don't you tell them this? Why didn't you tell them that? Really important stuff. You know, like, don't just assume the line down the side of the capacitor is the minus. That's what this video is all about. Okay? And then I'm leaving off a little bit about heat, about my sister, how she used to break stuff. My stuff. She wouldn't borrow my stuff. She'd just go in my bedroom, take it, break it. And my parents, they just roll their eyes. You know how your sister is. You know how your sister is. And then I borrowed a car. I started driving, and they wanted me to go get tomato plants. And they made me drive my sister's car out in this really bad storm. And I went up to the tomato place, and right on the corner before I got there, I was coming across the corner. Guy blew through a stop sign, and he hit the car. And he did like back those days, it wasn't a big deal. It was like $300 worth of damage. But back then, that was a lot of money. And my mother was kind of upset that I wasn't more upset. I said, look, you should be happy I'm alive. And second of all, it's a car. Well, it's your sister's new car. I said, yeah, but how many items of mine did she break? Oh, and the other thing she would do is she'd loan it to someone. What she did was she gave things of mine to people, claimed she loaned it to them, and I'd never get it back. And she got away with that crap, you know. And I told some stories about my sister in the past, and I didn't realize that other people had brothers and sisters that are like really bad news. I just thought I had one, you know, because everybody else seemed to be getting along with their brothers and sisters. But later on, when I started saying stuff, I had problems. Uh, they started keying me, and yeah, I have a brother I don't talk to. I have a sister I haven't seen in 10 years. I said, oh, okay, it's not just me. But I only had one other sibling, which was my sister, and she used to go around in life like her shit didn't stink. And she got away with it, okay? And that's the way that goes. I think that's it. All right, that's it.